Anderson, back to you in Atlanta.
Well, Judy, we are going to be joined on the phone now by a man by the name of Robert Arnold. He's a local reporter with WKPRC. I'm told he's in Hempville, Texas. Mr. Arnold, what are you seeing where you are?
Right now, this is just one of the areas where they have cordoned off, where they have found debris. You can see the yellow crime scene tape forming a triangle from some of the areas. The investigators have just finished a very meticulous investigation in this area, taking pictures, detailed measurements before moving on. Part of the problem that we've been seeing in the three counties, San Augustine and Sabine County specifically, is there is so much debris scattered over such a wide area. All they have time for right now is to just mark it, leave a volunteer firefighter, a deputy sheriff in the area to make sure nobody comes by and disturbs it, but they have to mark it until federal investigators get a chance to get into that area, and that is a monumental task at this point. One of the more eerie things we found was about 15 to 20 miles to the west of where we were as we were traveling through San Augustine County. Along Highway 103 on the side of the road was a perfect mission patch. It was intact. It was singed just a little bit, but it was a perfectly intact mission patch, and it bore the names of all the 7 astronauts. So in addition to the debris, there are some very eerie, very tragic findings out here in this area, and the people who live in this area are on edge at best because they're not sure what they're going to come across as they walk through these wooded areas and on their expansive properties. Anderson, back to you.
Robert, we are looking at some very disturbing pictures, obviously, right now. How widespread is this debris in the region you're in? I mean, we see the shot that you're showing us right now, but as you drive through this area, I mean, is this every couple of yards? I mean, how often do you come across debris?
It seems to go in spurts. You'll go for about a mile and you really won't see anything. Then all of a sudden you'll hit a patch where you'll see little yellow markers just about every couple of feet. And some of the pieces they're finding, they'll find pieces anywhere from as long as 12 feet down to as small as a quarter. We were on one farm with one gentleman, Willard Knight, who found a piece that was really no bigger than I would say a bathroom tile. So that's the problem. You'll go in through different areas and there won't be much, but then you'll hit other areas and there'll be a tremendous amount of debris. Anderson?
You had mentioned this patch that you had found. Were authorities on the scene? Had the area been cordoned off?
Yes, actually, they had a volunteer firefighter by the name of Stacy Rouse who was on that area. They have marked it with a small evidence marker flag right now, and they're waiting again until investigators can get to the area. That's the problem. They're just having to mark these areas off and just stand guard and make sure nobody disturbs it until federal investigators, obviously, and NASA officials have a chance to actually get to the scene and process that debris themselves.
Robert, the picture we are seeing from, I assume, behind you is of a hearse with local law enforcement authorities sort of gathered around. Am I to assume that those are human remains?
Yes, that is. That was found by the family living in this area here in Hemphill, pardon me, and they do believe it was a leg, and that's what they spent so much time doing, so much investigation out here to make sure that they document everything thoroughly, taking pictures, taking very detailed measurements of the area, and they finally finished that, bowed their heads before they took that remain, placed it in the back of that hearse, and they have finally left this area. Anderson?
I don't really want to go into too many details on this, Robert, but is there a sense of whether that is someone who was on the ground at the time debris hit, or is it believed to be a member of the Columbia crew?
At this time, they believe it may be a member of the Columbia crew, given all the attention that the investigators put into this area, and they roped it off, spent quite a bit of time, like I said, taking measurements, taking photographs. So right now, they are treating it as a possibility of being a member of the shuttle Columbia, but then again, that official determination has not been made as of yet.
Okay, Robert Arnold, appreciate you joining us from Hemphill, Texas. Obviously very disturbing pictures. We're going to be going now to Rusty Dornan, who's at the Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. Rusty, what is the scene there?
Anderson, Houston may be a big city, but it's really a small town when it comes to the Space Center. Nearly everybody here knows somebody who works for the space program, and it's really hit this town hard. And even outside the Space Center here, there's already been a makeshift memorial put up, people bringing flowers and flags. A lot of the businesses in town have put up signs expressing their grief and their sympathy for the families. Of course, here at the Space Center, I think anyone who watched that press conference could see how difficult it was for them to even get through it. They talked about how this is just not a job, it's a passion. Sending people into space is a passion, and they feel very close to the families involved. Usually when the astronauts are going through trainings, folks here have barbecues with them. They become part of the big family here, and to lose them is a very painful experience. Now, as we know, the future flights are on hold, but the astronaut training will continue, and they're talking about that the job will go on. However, they did talk about the fact that when asked what would come out of this tragedy, they said they didn't even want to think about it, that they didn't want to allow themselves to think about what they might have missed. They only want to think about these 7 families. Of course, there already is a very tremendous program in place here at NASA with grief counselors and that sort of thing that is ongoing all the time. Even as President Bush was addressing the nation, grief counselors were coming in to talk to Mission Control and really trying to address the folks here and how they're feeling about what's happened. So all around, continuously, they did say this has just been a very bad day here at NASA. Anderson?
Rusty Dorn in Houston. Rusty, can you hear me, or are you on IFB? All right, we'll go back to Rusty Dorn a little bit later on. We are going to go now to Judy Woodruff, who is standing by in Washington. Judy?
Thanks, Anderson. Somebody else we've been talking to, hearing from all day is our colleague Ed Lavandera, who is in Nacogdoches. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, Ed, in
right.
East Texas. This is, I gather, one community where a considerable amount of debris and presumably human remains may have come down.
We have seen, heard reports from many of the people we've talked to throughout this part of East Texas that almost everyone you talked to did say they heard this thundering sound, and what really stands out is just the length of time that they heard that thundering sound for. One woman I talked to said it seemed like it lasted 2 minutes long, the sound, and then they started hearing debris falling all over. We've got CNN crews that have been throughout the region here today, and we understand that there are officials who have gone around in certain areas and started picking up some parts of debris. We are here in downtown Nacogdoches, which is essentially almost kind of become like a gathering spot here for many people, and it's all because in this little parking lot over here there's a small fragment of the Space Shuttle Columbia, and what we have seen here is almost kind of a bizarre scene. Many people here coming together, just sharing stories, the recollections of what exactly happened this morning, and what we've seen, if you walk around this area in this part of downtown Nacogdoches, you do hear a lot of people just sharing with each other, reflecting on the different stories. And throughout the region, what you've also seen is just everyone armed with their video cameras and still cameras and going around the area taking pictures. In fact, at one point we saw a small piece of a fragment that was on a sidewalk just near downtown here, and it was no bigger than 3 inches by 3 inches, but there was a crowd of about 20 people around it taking pictures of it. And this is exactly what you've seen. I just spoke with one mother who was taking her children around, and she said, you know, in a weird sort of way, this is unfortunately a historic day, and one of those days where people always remember where they were, and that was the way that mother described it to me. So she wanted to be able to spend that with her children and explain to them what exactly has happened. We've seen crews around this area. We do understand that we'll continue the process of pinpointing the different type of debris and wreckage that needs to be picked up. And for the most part, we do understand that a lot of people have been heeding the warnings that officials here have been giving folks, that they need to stay away. And what we've seen is a lot of stuff like this where they have cordoned off these parking lots, whether it be military personnel or state or local police. We've also seen private residents who have had debris land in their property, and they'll cordon off their own driveways or backyards, whatever it takes, to make sure that nobody hampers or touches the debris that is in the area. So we've seen a lot of private citizens take it upon themselves to do that as well. Judy?
Ed, I want to try to give our audience a better sense of the geographic spread of where this debris and possibly human remains have come down. You are in Nacogdoches. Tell us, I don't know if we have a map available to show our viewers, but you know Texas very well. Talk about where you are in relation to Houston, the Houston Space Center, in relation to maybe to Hemphill County, where we were just, where Anderson was just talking with a reporter there, and before that we heard from Maria Hinojosa, who was in St. Augustine County. I mean, how big an area are we dealing with here?
We're talking with a massive area. East Texas, and East Texas, you have to remember, is also very different from what I think a lot of people's image of Texas is. East Texas is hilly. It's known for known as the piney woods. So this debris in this land, this terrain around here is very different from what I think most people's image of what Texas is supposed to be. So you're dealing about an area that has a lot of just a maze of rural roads that cross through it. Nacogdoches is north of Houston and about a 3.5-hour drive southeast of the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So this is an area that is you really have to know the roads to kind of navigate through here. There's one major highway that kind of connects you up into the northern part of Texas. But this is a massive area, and a lot of where the debris has fallen, quite frankly, I wouldn't be surprised if you've seen it fall in wooded areas that might take several days to reach, or on large farms or ranch lands that could, I think I've heard reports of a lot of people just combing through their land to see if they might come across anything. In fact, we saw a couple of guys riding around as we were driving into here, cutting across their own land to see if they could find anything. So a lot of people paying attention to this. This is going to take a lot of time just to be able to gather all the different pieces that are scattered all over the place. So you're talking about a huge area.